Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monica, and for those of you who don't know me, I am a script supervisor. I've been in the industry for over 35 years, and I created this channel for uh, new script supervisors or script supervisors that just want to just brush up on their techniques. Because I found that I didn't have that when I was starting out, and it's kind of my way of giving back. So today what we're going to go over is how to number your script and what should be going on the slate. All right, so there's a lot of different ways of numbering the scripts, and what you should do when you're doing a second unit, when you're doing a visual effects shot, what letters you should be using, what letters you shouldn't be using. So we're going to go over all of that today. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the basics. We are going to be working with scene 3, and as you can see here, it's slated that way. What's showing on the top here is what your script is going to look like. You've got your 3, and you circle it, and then you put your line through, and then the slate should look like this for scene 3. All right, so you're going to make sure that the roll number is correct, the scene number is correct, the take number is correct, and then all the information below. Now the notes will change, depending on what the director of photography wants to put in those notes. He may tell the assistant director, the assistant camera person to basically put the filtration on there, or make sure you put the lens number on there. So that will change, depending on what they want to put on there. Make sure that the date is correct. But primarily, you are mainly concerned with the roll number, the scene number, and the take, because those numbers are going to match the notes that are in your script. All right, so let's go on to the next one. All right, so the next number that you're going to be putting on, or that you're going to be slating, would be 3 Apple. Okay, so whenever they change the setup to a different size or a different location or a different angle, you're going to give it another number, because that is going to signify that it is a different shot. All right, so the next number in the line would be 3 Apple. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about the military alphabet. Now, when you are calling out scene numbers, so for example, we just did scene 3 and 3 Apple, correct? We have to make sure that we always put a word to those letters after our root number. The reason being is because a C can be confused as a B. You call out, okay, 3B, and somebody else is going to yell out 3C, no, 3B, oh, 3C, no, 3B. So you want to make sure that you give it a word. So 3 Baker, 3 Charlie. So those things are very clear and they won't be confused. Now, if you notice, I crossed out some of the letters that you should not be using on your slating, because they can be confused with other numbers. So for example, the I, we don't use I when we go from hotel to Juliet or Jackson. So the reason we don't use I is because it can be confused as a 1. We don't use O because that can be confused as a 0. So for example, if our scene number was 3 and we use the O, some people might look at it and say, oh, that's scene 30. No, it's not scene 30, it's 3. They wanted to say O, so we just don't use it. I don't, some people use the Q, I don't, because it can be confused like an O. Okay, so we don't use Q. We don't use S because an S can also be confused as a 5, and Z can be confused as a 2. All right, so these are the letters that you want to not put in your, when you're numbering your script, you don't want to use. All right, so here's another example of words that you can use. Some people use the RAF alphabet, the Regional Allied Forces alphabet, which is Apple, Beer, Charlie, Dog, Edward, Freddie. It really doesn't matter what word you use. These are the ones that are most common. And you'll probably on sets where, maybe there's a theme to say you were working on Barbie, they'd say, okay, 3 Barbies up, or, 3 Kens up, so, which is fine. You complete and but you gotta kind of read the room, because if people are serious, really serious, and they really, not that you shouldn't be serious on set, but it's okay to make it a little lighthearted when you want to give it a different letter, or a different word to that letter. That's okay. It's not that rigid. But again, read the room, make sure that everybody's okay with it, and you're not just they're not feeling that you're just goofing off. But these are the words that would these are some other words that you can use. Let me show you a couple other samples of other words that can be used on the set. Okay, so now here we have the police alphabet, and there starts with Adam, A, B, boy, Charles, David, Edward, Frank. Again, just another type of wording. There's each department has their own uh, alphabet, and you can use any one of these. It's not a big deal. And here's another chart that can give you some more, suggestions for words that you can use on the set. All of these are acceptable. So it really just depends on what you want to use. Okay, so then you would just go on to continue to number your script. You would go with three apple, three baker. Now, what happens if you get to the end of the alphabet? Okay, so what happens if you get to the end of the alphabet? So, for example, here we did three X-ray, three Yankee. Now, three Zulu, you can't use, because we remember we don't use the Z. So, what would be the next letter up? Now, and you're probably saying, God, would I really get through the alphabet like that? I've gone through the alphabet like that. Actually, a couple of times, and I'll show you exactly what letter comes next. But in those situations, you may have, scene three may be, exterior military zone, and it says troops attack. Well, that's two words, but there could be a lot of shots in that troops attack. Gunfire and troops attacking and fighting and shooting and all kinds of stuff. And you may go through the alphabet a couple of times, actually. So let me tell you what's going to come next after the three Yankee. So then we revert back to the apple, but we're going to go apple, apple. And then the next letter is going to be apple baker and apple Charlie. And you're going to yell it out just like that. You're going to say, okay, three apple apples up, or three apple bakers up. Okay, and then you're going to go through the whole alphabet like that again. Okay, so say you get to the end of that alphabet, you go three apple Yankee. Well, the next thing you're going to go is three baker apple, then three baker baker, three baker Charlie, and so on. Okay, so that's basically what you're going to do when you get to the alphabet, the end of the alphabet. Now, say you have a scene number that the root scene number, and you see it right there circled, it's three apple, because when they give revisions after they've put out the production draft, they may be inserting scenes in between those scenes. So they won't change the scene numbers. In other words, they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But say there is a scene between 3 and 4, they're not gonna renumber the whole script. They're just gonna insert another scene in between there, and they're gonna call it three apple. All right. Now, when you get a scene like that, you're going to reverse the letter. Their apple is going to be on the left side. All right. So, for example, in this first one, you're going to see it says, instead of three apple, it's going to say apple three, because that is considered the root scene number. Then you are going to insert all of your apples and bakers and Charlies after that letter. So the next letter in line is going to be apple three apple and apple three baker. All right. So you always want to put the production or the writer's scene number or letter on the left side, and you put your apples and bakers on the right side. All right. And this is pretty standard. Okay. You're not doing anything that is, weird or, or strange. It's standard in the industry. So and you'll get some ACs there that won't really know, but you have to explain it to them. Say, no, whenever there's an apple C number, put their apple on the left and my apples and bakers go on the right. So, for example, I mean, think about it. If you left it like this, you put 3 apple, well, then it's going to be confused with scene 3, where you already labeled a 3 apple in that scene, right? So this is an entirely new scene, so you have to give it an entirely new scene number. So it's not a 3, scene 3, it's apple 3, okay? I hope that makes sense. Leave me a comment in the remarks if you don't, and I'll explain it to you a little bit more. Okay, and now what happens if you get to the end of the letters in this scenario? So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to call it apple 3 Yankee, and then apple 3 apple apple, apple 3 apple baker. I know it sounds like and a partridge in a pear tree because the C numbers are going to start getting really long, but it's very important because this is how you're going to number it, because it's kind of a code. It's like the editor's going to see it. He's going to say, okay, apple 3, okay, we're talking about scene apple 3, and now we're talking about the scene number. The specific setup is on the right side, and yes, they are going to start getting longer, but this is standard in the industry. Okay, so say you're working on a second unit filming or insert unit or a splinter unit, all right? All of these are not the main unit. They are a subsidiary of the main unit. So who are you going to revert to? You're going to revert to the main script supervisor, and you're going to ask them, okay, how do you want me to slate these? Do you want me to put an X in front of the number? And that's most likely what they're going to have you do, because it just depends on how that person wants the other units to be slated, because he or she is responsible for getting everything organized, and if you're the main script supervisor, you're going to tell the second unit script supervisor, okay, put an X in front of all of your numbers so we know that that is a second unit. Or if it's an insert unit, or if it's a splinter unit, they usually just put an X in front of it. And let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so here we are working on a second unit or a splinter unit set, and the script supervisor has asked you to put an X in front of everything. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to put an X in front of everything. So for example, if you were working on scene 3, you're going to go X3 and then X3 apple, X3 baker, and so on. So the editor knows if there's an X in front of it, it's pretty universal that that's a splinter unit. It's not considered the main unit. Now, if you notice, I changed the roll number here too, because most likely you're not going to be working with the roll numbers that the main unit is using, and they usually use either the Apple camera or the Baker camera. They're usually going to give you a camera that is not the main unit camera rolls. So you have to make sure that you ask the camera department, because the second unit guys may be just coming on for the day and they're not really sure. Ask the script supervisor, what roll numbers are we going to be using on set? So in other words, if they've already used a C camera on the main unit, say it was a Steadicam, and they went through rolls 2 and 3 already, you know that you're going to be working with the C camera on the splinter unit. You want to know that the next roll up is going to be C4, right? So you have to make sure you ask them, okay, what number are the cameras, what camera roll numbers are you going to be using? And also, what sound roll numbers are you going to be using? And for that, you go over to you ask the sound mixer on your unit, say what sound roll are we starting on? Did you speak? Because normally the second unit's sound person will communicate with the A unit sound person, and they will say, oh, well, John wants me to start on X1 or 24 or whatever. They might want to give it a different number. So then that's the number, the sound roll number that you're going to put on your notes. So again, when you're working on a second unit, you want to make sure that you ask the script supervisor what roles are going to be using, and what role numbers are we going to be using. If she doesn't know, then ask the camera guys, and say, hey, have you talked to the other guys? Do you know what role numbers we're going to be starting with? Because most likely it's not going to be, the A unit roles are going to be second unit roles that, it might be a camera they've never used before. Say it's a GoPro or or whatever. They may be starting with one, but you got to know, what are they naming that camera? Because each camera has its letter. Camera A, camera B, camera C. You need to know what roll number. It's not so much the body, they usually give each body a letter. So for example, if you're working with just a regular standard camera, that'll be camera A, and this is going to be camera B. Then they may do a steady cam, and they're going to call all those rolls C. Okay, so you have to know, okay, if you're working with a steady cam here, okay, we're working with steady cam, so this is going to be C camera, and what is the next letter or number, sorry. So again, that's very important when you're working on a second unit. Okay, so here's another scenario. Say you're working with a visual effect shot. Now, here's 3 different shots. Now, we're still working with the same root number of scene 3, right, in this situation. So, say scene 3, the first shot, I put a V in front of it because it's an establishing shot of, I don't know, a house, all right? But this house is actually supposed to be in Canada. And they don't want to have any palm trees up there. But in this particular shot, we see a palm tree in the shot. So the director's going to say, you know what, just paint out that palm tree because we shouldn't have any palm trees. So you put a V in front of it. You ask the camera guys, put a V in front of it, guys. And then you make a note, visual effects, paint out palm tree in background. All right. So whenever you put a V in front of your number, that signals to the editor that there is a visual effects shot, something has to be done in post with that shot. So for example, say the second shot, 3 apple, is just a close-up of Jack. All right. And you don't see there isn't any visual effects that you have to paint out or anything. So you're not going to put a V in front of it because they don't have to do anything about it. But say the next shot, 3 Baker, there is a visual effect. Say they went out into a full shot of Jack, and now you're seeing where there should be where there's a palm tree and there shouldn't be. Then you're going to say, okay, put a V in front of it, guys, and then blah 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 blah. Visual effects, take out palm tree in background. And you can also, because sometimes when you're working with 2 cameras and you may not catch it right away, tell the camera guys, hey guys, we're not supposed to see any palm trees in this shot. So if you see one, put a V in front of it and let me know. And then, because sometimes they're working really quick. So they'll say, okay, you know what, we saw we saw a palm tree in this shot. So and you're looking at the slates, right? You're checking the slates on the monitor to make sure they're slating correctly. And all of a sudden you see a V in front of it. It's like, go to the camera guy, say, hey, why'd you put a V in front of that? And he'll say, oh, well, because there was a palm tree there. Oh, okay, great. Thanks for letting me know. Okay. But they can't just put it up and not tell you, because that letter, you have to explain it in your notes. All right. So make sure you tell them, guys, just make sure if you do change it, let me know so that I can make sure I make a note in my notes. All right. Okay. So what if you're working on a second unit? Okay. So here's the same scenario. Same thing. Just the only difference is that now you're working on a second unit. All right. So how are you going to slate it? First of all, your root number is going to be an X in front of all of your letters, your root numbers, right? Because the script supervisor asked you to put an X in front of it. So you're going to go X3, X3 Apple, X3 Baker, and so on. But say X3, there's a visual effect shot in there. You're going to put a V in front of that. So now instead of X3, it's going to be Victor X3, X-ray, sorry. X-ray 3. So when you call it out, you're going to say, okay, Victor X-ray 3. And the next one's going to be X-ray 3 Apple. The next one's going to be Victory X-ray 3 Baker. Okay, so I know it sounds like a long thing to say, but that's the correct way. And you have to make sure that you explain, that you yell it out, and they know that, and it's matching what the slate says. Okay, so that's the basics of slating. Now, I know it's can be a little confusing sometimes, but as long as you know the method and the reasoning behind the numbering, it is very simple. Now, I tried to explain this to a second unit script supervisor in Puerto Vallarta one time, who did not speak English. I speak Spanish, so I was there on a TV series, and they just assigned me a second unit script supervisor that had never done script supervising, no experience whatsoever. But I tried to explain to her, how to slate. I said, okay, well, here's the number, and you put an A after it for the next setup, and blah 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 blah. So I got the notes back, and there was these wacky numbers all over the place. And I said, why did you, I don't understand. Why did you slate it like that? And she said, well, you said just, I don't know. I put a number because you told me to put a number. And she was just kind of just throwing out random numbers. It's like, well, it doesn't make any sense. It has to make sense. Okay. So you got to remember the method of why you're slating like that, because otherwise it's not going to mean anything. All right. So, all right. So that's it. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If there's a slating that you're a little confused about, let me know, and I can explain it to you, or I can give you some suggestions on how to slate it. And that's it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I really, it's really great when I get those little subscriptions and those little comments from you guys, because I feel like I'm really talking to somebody. So anyway, I hope it's helped you, and we'll see you on the next one.